Welcome back everyone to our next video. So in this video we'll be talking in detail about the compacted clay liners. Okay, so that is either you can use a compacted clay liner as a barrier layer, or you can use a geomembrane as a barrier layer, or you can use a combination of both as seen in the composite liner system. And even avoiding this, you can use a geosynthetic clay liner, which is a combination of a clay liner sandwiched between two geotextile layers. Okay, so that is also one way of providing a barrier layer to a liner system. Now, a liner system has to satisfy certain requirements to serve the function of being a liner. Now, primarily what we are looking for in a liner system, liner material is the low hydraulic conductivity which it can provide. Okay, so because the major purpose of liner system is to prevent the migration of leachate to the subsoil. Okay, and therefore a barrier material is very essential within the liner system in addition to the leachate collection and drainage layer. Okay, so if you are going to choose a material as a barrier layer within the liner system, then these are the different criteria which the liner material has to satisfy. Okay, so most importantly, it should be, the liner material should be having lower hydraulic conductivity to minimize the leakage of the leachate. Okay, so preferably the permeability of that liner material should be less than 10 raised to minus 7 centimeter per second. Then the other thing is that it has to have adequate shear strength to maintain the liner stability, because this is the first layer that is constructed during the construction of the landfill, and then above that, above your liner system, only the other materials are going to be dumped off, and then the construction process happens. So this has to be some material which is having adequate shear strength to be uh, more stable during all this construction process that is happening above it. Okay, then minimal shrinkage potential to minimize desiccation cracking. So as mentioned in the previous video, when we are using these clay materials, especially clay materials as a liner material, these are natural materials, these natural materials will be easily susceptible to uh, temperature changes and other moisture changes. Okay, so therefore it should be a material which is not and one of the things that we have to make sure is that it is not a material which has a high shrinkage potential. Okay, because if it shrinks too much, then cracks will be developed and there will be preferential flow paths developed within this liner material, and then there will be no more prevention of leachate migration into the subsoil below. Then minimum thickness ranges between zero point 0.3 to 1 meter for a liner layer. Okay, so thickness minimum here it is specified 0.6 to zero point 0.6 meter is a minimum, but still 0.3 to 1 meter is the range that we normally use. Okay, and then the side slope of this liner system to be maintained is 2.5 is to 1 to 3 is to 1. That is the range of the side slope to be maintained for the liner system. An average bottom slope. So when you're constructing the liner at the bottom also, there should be a slope provided so that the leachate collection and drainage also happens effectively and by natural means itself. So the average bottom slope to be provided should be in the range of 2 to 5%. Then when you are making a compacted clay liner, you have to make sure that there are no clots developed within the liner layer or barrier layer. So you have to effectively pulverize or break down all those clots and make uniform soil layers. Okay, so these are the few requirements which the liner material has to meet for being an effective barrier system. So next we will look in detail about the things that we have to follow while constructing a compacted clay liner. So compacted clay liner means here the barrier layer within the liner system will be a natural material like clay. Okay, and this clay liner also is not made at one go. Okay, uh, it will be made by adding several layers to it. That is, see, whatever clay material we use, we have to compact it properly. Okay, so if we are going to make the clay liner, compacted clay liner for a thickness of 1 meter, we are not going to make that 1 meter at a single stretch. Okay, so we will be making it in lifts. Okay, lifts or in small layers of layers of small thickness, and then we will be making up to the entire height of 1 meter clay liner. Okay, so suppose maybe the lifts that we use is 0.3 meter, and so first we will lay 0.3 meter thick clay soil on the ground, and then we will compact that 0.3 meter thick clay, and then over that we will lay the next layer of clay, and then we will compact that. So layer by layer only you will be making the compacted clay liner. So each layer that you place on the ground, that is called as lift. Okay, now one of the important so what we are going to discuss now is some of the control measures that we have to take, or basically on the construction methodology that has to be followed during the construction of a compacted clay liner. Okay, so one of the thing is to determine the placement water content. See, whichever structure is it, it's very important that the soil in which the structure is going to be founded has to be tested in the laboratory for its optimum moisture content as well as maximum dry density. Okay, and these values greatly influence the compaction properties of the soil at the site. Okay, so it should not be neither too low nor too great. I mean, the water content should neither be too low nor too great. So it has to be that optimum level which has to be maintained at site as well, because at site only it will be subjected to more of the seasonal changes and everything. So especially this is a clay soil, so we have to be very sure of what water content to be chosen for the proper compaction and for achievement of the required shear strength of the soil. Okay, so what we do for a clay liner, also we will test the soil at the laboratory and find out what is the moisture content and dry density values. Okay, see, one of the major requirements for a clay liner is to have, or is to permit, low hydraulic conductivity through it, right? So whichever material you use as a barrier layer, it should be having very low permeability, or it should be permitting only lower hydraulic conductivity. Okay, so whatever construction methodologies you adopt, finally it should be such that it um, it will make the liner material least permeable to any sort of solutions. Okay, so that is the idea behind the construction practices that we adopt for the construction of the compacted clay liner. So here also, when we are going to choose the placement water content, what we do is, for the liner material we will do a series of compaction tests. Okay, so we will do the normal Proctor test, then we'll do the Proctor test at a reduced energy, then we'll do the heavy Proctor test also, which is conducted at a higher energy. Okay, and then what we will do is, see, these are the compaction test that has been conducted at the moderate. There is a normal Proctor energy, then lower energy with lower compaction effort, and with higher compaction effort. And then what you do is, you will draw the line of optimum. That is, a line of optimum is a line which passes through all the maximum dry density values of the different Proctor test that has been conducted for different compactive energies. Okay, and then what you do is, you will draw the zero air void line, or it is also called as the 100% saturation line, which is an ideal line. Okay, it doesn't really happen in the real condition. So you'll also draw the zero air void line. Now the top limit will be served by this zero air void line, and the bottom limit will be served by this line of optimum. So usually what we do is, for a liner material, or for a compacted clay, for a clay material to be used as a liner, if you want to achieve the lowest hydraulic conductivity for the clay material, you have to choose the water content on the wet side of optimum. Okay, so that is why what we are doing is we are doing a series of compaction tests for different compactive efforts, and then we are drawing the line of optimum which will serve as the bottom limit. And basically what we want is the water content, to choose a water content on the wet side of optimum. Okay, because that is going to give us the lowest hydraulic conductivity for the clay material. And then you will also draw the 100% saturation line. Okay, so you will know at what is the difference at which the optimum moisture content is present in the clay. So this shaded portion will give you that range of values from which you can choose a particular value to be taken as the placement water content or the ideal water content to be used for the clay material at site. Okay, so at that ideal water content, your clay material will be having the lowest hydraulic conductivity. Okay, so this is the reason why we do these series of Proctor tests and find out the placement water content on the wet side of optimum by adopting this method. Okay, so the placement water content for getting the lowest hydraulic conductivity for the clay material will be lying between this 100% saturation line and line of optimum. Okay, so the next thing that we have to take care is about the liner lifts of this compacted clay liner. So liner lifts are nothing but the each layer of clay material that you pour over and compact. Okay, because we will not constructing the entire clay liner to the full thickness at one go. We will be constructing the clay liner layer by layer. Okay, so that each layer will be poured over and then it will be compacted properly. Then only the next layer will be put over it. Okay, so that each layer of clay is called as liner lift. Now for clay soils, see, at field, if you want to achieve the required compaction, you have to use heavy machinery like rollers. Okay, so there are different types of rollers which you can use based on the type of soil that you are compacting. And for clay type of soils, what is normally preferred is sheep's foot roller. Okay, so sheep's foot roller, as shown in this figure, see, your roller will be a vehicle having a drum, okay, at the front end. So this drum will be having this sheep foot thing embedded over the entire body of the drum or entire circumference of the drum. Okay, not the circumference, over the entire body of the drum, this sheep's foot rollers will be embedded. Okay, and this will be passing over the liner lift that has been poured, okay, to compact it. So these sheep foot rollers are what is generally used for compacting clay type of soils, because they are found to be more effective in achieving the required dry density, okay, at that particular water content. Now for other types of soils, other type of rollers will be more efficient. Okay, so here the reason why we use sheep's foot is that, you know, these sheep foot actually compact from the bottom to the top. Okay, so this, one second. So this is your liner lift. Suppose this is your first liner lift that you have poured. So they are going to compact this layer thickness. Okay, this lift thickness. Now, one thing that you have to make sure this is that this layer thickness is not greater than this length of the sheep foot roller. See, this is the length. This much is the length of the sheep foot roller. Okay, so your liner thickness should not be greater than the sheep foot roller. Then what happens is that your sheep foot roller will not be able to effectively reach all parts of the soil and compact it. So obviously either the thickness of the soil should be almost equal to the length of the sheep foot roller. Even less also it's fine, but it the liner thickness should never be greater than the sheep foot roller. Then effective compaction cannot be achieved for the entire liner lift thickness. Okay, so that is one of the things that you have to keep in mind then while choosing the liner lift thickness. And the reason why sheep foot roller is preferred is that these these compact the soil from bottom towards up. Okay, and while doing that, they produce large shear strains in the soil during that compaction process. And due to these shear strains produced, there will be realignment of the soil particles within this liner lift. Okay, so due to the kneading of this sheaf foot roller in the particular liner lift thickness, there will be shear strains produced, and these shear strains causes the soil particles in that lift thickness to rearrange, and then they will rearrange to form a particular structure. Okay, so this rearranges to form dispersed structure. Okay, you have already studied in your geotechnical engineering about dispersed structure and flocculated structure. Now, the advantage of getting a dispersed structure here is that you will be able to you will be getting only fewer void spaces in a dispersed structure, soil structure. Okay, and because of the fewer void spaces, it will only promote lower hydraulic activity through such type of soil structure. Okay, so that is the reason why we sheep's foot roller is preferred for compacting this clayey soil, because it realigns the soil particles to form a dispersed structure, thereby making only fewer void spaces and only promoting lower hydraulic conductivity. Okay, and as I said, the sheep foot roller should be fully penetrating into this liner thickness. It should not be partially penetrating. Okay, this is not how the compaction should happen. This is the correct way of compaction, and make sure that this happens properly. The liner thickness should never be greater than the thickness of the sheep foot roller. Okay, see, even if it is less, it is fine, but liner lift thickness should never be greater than the length of the sheep foot roller. Okay, so that is one thing that we have to make sure, which is properly done during the construction. So another parameter which we have to look into when we are dealing with finer particles or clayey particles to be used as liner material is the fabric of the particle. Okay, in what form does the particle exist? Okay, whether the whole structure exists as a microfabric, mini fabric, or macro fabric. Okay, so this is the fabric of the soil becomes more relevant when we are using such finer particles, or finer particles such as clay are used as a liner material. Okay, so let's see what a micro, mini and macro fabric is. Now, micro fabric means it consists of regular aggregations of particles. Basically, it will have very small pores within the aggregates, so the hydraulic conductivity will be very low. Okay, in the case of mini fabric, it will have more, it is not previous, it is pervious. Okay, it will have more pervious aggregations, and basically the pores will be much more larger than the microfabric, so there will be a greater flow of any liquid through this mini fabric. And hydraulic conductivity varies with the square of the pore radius. Okay, so obviously my mini fabric compared to microfabric is much more permeable. Then you have macro fabric. Macro fabric will have cracks, fissures, all those things. So obviously there will be preferential flow paths through the soil. So it's not a good liner material to be used. So when a liner clay material is chosen, we have to see in what fabric does it exist. So normally we'll choose for the one which permits the lowest hydraulic conductivity. That is microfabric. So another construction technique that we have to follow is for the lift interface. Now we know that the compacted clay liner is constructed of several lifts and then made it to the total thickness for which it has been designed. So what happens is that sometimes between the lift interfaces, see that this is the one lift, this is another lift. So these horizontal lines which I am drawing, these actually represent the interface between two lifts of soil. Okay, so what happens is that sometimes these lift interface, that is the interface between the two lift, that is the below lying and above lying soil clay material, will have macro fabric. Okay, so it will have cracks here, and what happens is that leachate, as it passes through, it can flow like laterally also within the interface, and then it will pass through this cracks and fissures which has been formed in the lifts. Okay, maybe due to drying, the cracks or fissures have been formed in the clay. In addition to that, if proper bonding is not achieved between two lifts, then in the interface itself will become a preferential path for the leachate to have a lateral flow along the interface. Okay, and then it will flow through the pores, the cracks or fissures which are already present in the lifts. Then again these lateral flow of leachate happens, and it joins the other fissures in the underlying lifts. Okay, so there are preferential flow paths formed for the leachates to travel because of the macro pores which are existing within this, and this is happening because an effective bond has not been formed between the lift interface. Now to make sure that your lift interfaces are connected properly, or two lifts are connected, bonded properly, so that no such leakage or flow happens. What we do is, once one of the lifts, okay, soil lifts are laid and compacted, what we do is, normally we do a process called as scarifying. Okay, scarifying means a sort of roughening you do. Okay, you scratch it. So you do a sort of scratching or roughening to a depth of 25 mm in the lift constructed, in the liner lift constructed, and then after doing that scarifying process, you will pour the next layer of lift. Okay, and then compact that lift over the underlying lift. Okay, so again the newly laid lift will be scarified or roughened to a depth of 25 mm, and then only the next lift will be laid. So when you do this process of roughening on top of the lifts and then placing the next layer of lift, you are actually strengthening the bond between the two. Okay, a better bond, or it will help two lifts to blend together as the additional lift is compacted. Okay, so this is also one construction technique that you have to follow to make sure that no preferential flow paths are formed along the interfaces between the lifts. Okay, and also through the lifts. Now another technique that we have to make sure, another technique that we have to follow to make sure that your liner remains, liner permeates only low hydraulic conductivity through it, is to reduce the clots which are formed. Okay, so clots are nothing but the aggregation of soil particles. So when clots are formed, obviously the space between them will be large, and there will be higher hydraulic conductivity happening through the soil structure. So therefore we have to make sure that all such clots greater than 25 mm are broken down properly, and then it is used in your liner material. Okay, so that you can keep the hydraulic permeability low itself. Another thing is desiccation. Desiccation also means drying. So the clay soils are, some clay soils are subjected to high shrinking and swelling. If this high shrinking happens due to loss of moisture, there will be cracks formed in the clay material. And if you are going to construct a liner material using clay soil and then cracks are formed, then it will not serve the function of being an effective barrier to the fluids. Okay, so you don't want any cracks, you don't want the clay to dry out and form cracks and become preferential flow paths for the fluids. So in order to prevent that drying of the clay soil, when lifts are laid, you have to make sure that some periodic spraying of water is done. Okay, so that it doesn't dry up easily. And another way of protecting the compacted soil liners from drying or desiccation is to use the geomembrane covers. Okay, and obviously the spraying the liner with bituminous sealers or covering the completed liner with another layer of soil. So what you're trying to do is you are trying to prevent further drying up of the clay soil by making it exposed to atmosphere. So in order to reduce the drying up or desiccation, you can cover the top part of the liner material with some geomembrane layers, or you can put bituminous sealers, or you can put just another layer of soil over it, which will prevent the drying of this compacted clay liner. Okay, or you can periodically spray. So when you periodically spray water, also make sure that it doesn't exceed I mean, the water spraying doesn't exceed too much, because it should not affect that optimum water content also. Okay, it is only to keep it prevent it from drying. So next is about leachate removal. Basically, we're going to talk about the efficiency of leachate removal systems within the liner systems. So in order to, for the, within the liner system, you will have a barrier layer as well as a leachate collection and drainage layer. So what you have to do is, you have, when you're constructing the barrier layer also, you have to construct in such a way that it facilitates that natural, drainage of the leachate without allowing it to pond over the liner material, okay, a barrier material. Okay, so for that to happen, you can provide a slope um, over the you can provide a sloping of the clay barrier layer, so that naturally you can collect the leachates out of the liner system and take it for further treatment or anything. So thereby what you're doing is, you're not allowing the leachate to get collected over your barrier layer and then give it even a chance to penetrate through your barrier layer. So therefore you have to provide a slight sloping over the barrier layer. Okay, so then only you will have an efficient leachate removal. You can achieve an efficient leachate removal system within the liner system. So lastly, what we have to make sure is a proper monitoring. Now by monitoring means, see, the main criteria that we are trying to achieve is lower hydraulic conductivity, and whatever liner material that we are going to use, we would have already tested it in the laboratory for determining its hydraulic conductivity. But normally what happens is that, what the value of hydraulic conductivity that you have achieved in the laboratory doesn't really get duplicated in the field. Okay, so if you are going to conduct field permeability values also, it is going to be very different for the same soil than what you had observed in the laboratory. Okay, so mainly to avoid such discrepancies, you have to conduct more field tests, and you have to make sure what is the actual field hydraulic conductivity, and you have to continuously monitor this liner material as well for its hydraulic conductivity, so that maybe periodically you will have to conduct the permeability test and see. Okay, so just don't rely on the don't rely only on the laboratory results of hydraulic conductivity, but also you have to do periodic checking of hydraulic conductivity in the field by conducting field permeability test. Okay, so that is what is meant by monitoring. You have to monitor the liner system for its hydraulic conductivity throughout. Okay, so these are the several factors which we have to keep in mind for making an efficient compacted clay liner system. Okay, so these are the points to be kept in mind while during the construction of a compacted clay liner system. Okay, so each of these factors will contribute to or each of these factors should be controlled in such a way that lowest hydraulic permeability is achieved for your compacted clay liner, and it will serve as an effective barrier to any type of fluids. Okay, so that's all about your construction methodologies or the construction practices that you have to or the various factors that you have to control, okay, for the construction of a compacted clay liner. So thank you all.